All right. Welcome to another open source office hours. Um, this week, I think Nate is still not back. He was actually a little bit sick after his trip, so hopefully he can join next week. But we have some cool things to announce from Lever's side, as well as Carl Johan here has some cool new plugins to share, and then we'll go on to some questions. And looks like there's some good ones in the notes. So I just first wanted to announce that we pushed out a new version of the DerbyJS site. It's mostly a stylistic overhaul. We have sort of now like a consistent color palette, and everything is laid out nicely so that when we add more guides and tutorials, it can fit into the structure. And we also put a couple of new little examples on the homepage to try to drive home the real-time aspect of the framework. Still like to do a bit more to make the homepage more enticing and clarifying for people, that are coming from different angles to Derby. But yeah, it's up there. I removed Bootstrap and some other stuff that was kind of being used originally, so it's a little bit smaller and easier to change the styles now. I think, of course, it's still all open source and on the repos, and it's a Derby app, so hopefully we'll also continue to serve as an example. Another thing that I wanted to announce from our side is a Racer plugin called Racer Memstats, which a member of our team, Will, made, that will let you collect memory usage statistics in the browser. So we're using it to try to see what, we're doing a lot of client-side performance tuning at the moment. Because with our bigger accounts, they're loading a lot of documents and they have a lot of subscriptions, and trying to find out how we can make their experience smoother. And so this tool helps get a sense of that. So the README shows how to use it. It's pretty cool. Carl, you want to mention the two plugins?
Yeah, so the first one was the subcomponents plugin, which I also made a pull request for, actually. I went back, we discussed it then, which adds namespacing to the component function, the app.component function, and also it automatically adds subcomponents, so you can specify what subcomponents you have basically to a component, and you don't have to do app.component and so forth.
Nice.
This is the pull request. I remember Nate was not a huge fan of that, at least the namespacing stuff and the subcomponent stuff. Anyway, the other thing we did is the deload plugin, which is basically just a wrapper for a few of the route functions, or actually all of them. And what it does is that you can basically, instead of specifying a callback for a pattern, you can specify a component, and then on that component you need to have a load method on your prototype if you want to trigger any functionality. And the first thing is that the component gets automatically added to Derby automatically, and the second thing is that if you have a load function, it will get automatically triggered, and you can then specify like data fetching and subscriptions and whatnot in the load function in the component. And why would you want to do that? Yes, you want to do that because you want to specify all the load functionality within the component, of course, since it's kind of separation of concerns and blah blah blah. So you don't want to have some logic in the route and then you have some other logic in your component. And the whole purpose of this is to be able to do it in a more slick way and to keep all the logic within the component.
Does it get cleaned up too? Like, so if you subscribe to stuff and then you navigate to a different route?
What was that again?
Does it clean up after itself? So if you go to a different route, like it unloads?
No, it does not.
I think it might be possible to have it automatically do that using model.context, which is something I still need to document better, but I think that's one thing that routes do, though, like on the page. So if you load data, like you subscribe to data in one route and then you navigate to another, it gets cleaned up. That might be something to look into. But yeah, it's really cool.
Isn't the data automatically clean up between routes?
Yeah, maybe that's the case, and you don't need to do anything extra. I'm trying to let's see. I saw an article on React container components, which I think sort of sums up this pattern for React. So I think that it's a good, it's something people in general are thinking about.
I guess a problem for React, or not a problem, but React is a very small part of the whole application when you do an application. I mean, it's just the view part and possibly also maybe like you can of course add everything to it, but you probably shouldn't. I mean, the controller part and the view model part and the model layer, you can of course add it, but it's probably not so wise to do it.
Yeah, no, this article is more describing a similar pattern of like separating you for a component to expect certain kind of data, but not load it in the middle of its data processing. Right? So it's like they have these other components that like load data and then like pass it in to whatever the view component is. So what I like about what you've done is that you have some like functionality for loading and preparing data is in its own function, but then because it's part of the component, you can see very clearly, what data that component is going to have access to.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's the whole point basically. And then just to make a, easy pattern for the routes, basically.
Sorry, guys. I have a question on it's a stupid question on the semantic of the name of the plugin or module because d-load, I would say that's a component. But on how it works, I would say that it's either on the Derby side, so service side, and client side. So I would rather call it Derby dash load. What do you think?
That's kind of a good point. I think we have tended to do plugins as either Derby dash or Racer dash, and then components is D dash.
Yeah, that's why I would call this one Derby dash load.
I actually didn't know that, so I just put the shortest one.
Okay.
Yeah. We've talked about it like some office hours ago, but we haven't really solidified it. But I think it's not too late. It's a good pattern to follow. The idea was that using D dash for components was going to be around the fact that there's probably going to be a lot of them, and to sort of distinguish them from the library modules or plugins.
Makes sense. Yeah, if we get around to it, I'll definitely change. And moving forward, I'll do that. Maybe you should put that somewhere on the homepage.
Yeah.
I'm kind of like, you know, if you want to do plugins or something in the docs.
Yeah, I'll do that. Yeah, there's gonna be like a developers page, right? So people that are trying, you know, making plugins, components, or submitting the Derby, and that'll be a really good thing.
Jan, I do have a couple of questions on the new Derby design.
Yeah.
So the first one is when I was checking the home page, that by the way I like very much the new design. When I was checking the home page, I went down and in the, let's say, community links underneath, so Google Groups, GitHub issues, I would put also the GitHub link. What do you think?
The chat? The link to the chat room?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
Because since you put there the link to the Google group, I think it makes sense to put the link of the chat as well. In that position, I don't think it would be good to put the Hackpad link, as we discussed also some Hangouts before with Nate. It should be more between us, let's say, so more a working thing.
Good point.
And another question I was making to myself was, now in the navbar on the top, there is Get Started, Docs and Resources. The Hackpad, let's say, guides, where you put lots of arguments to start writing guides or how to use Derby and those things, would be docs, and the documents would be put in another URL, or would be docs that one and guide will be added later?
Yeah, I was thinking of actually having guides, like there'd probably be 3 top-level things: tutorial, guide, and docs.
Yeah, I would agree with this.
Yeah, and we might change it to like API docs or something, because you know the docs are sort of the bare minimum. Like we're just describing what things are, but I think there's a lot of work to be done in the guides to really take people through how to work with and think in Derby, the stuff that you guys have kind of figured out the hard way. Yeah.
I didn't wrote it before, but if I may, I would have an announcement, or maybe a half announcement to do. That is, there's a Node.js conference in Italy coming up in October, and I already talked to that conference before, and this time I would like to propose a talk on Derby.
Nice.
I don't have the topic yet, since the due date for the call for papers is in the 15th of May. I do have some time to think about it. Let's say, yeah, exactly 1 month. But I was thinking about an introduction talk on Derby and how we use it in our company, how I use it for my projects, and so. In order to introduce to the Italian community this framework and talk about it, something similar to the talk you did. I don't remember where. It's half an hour talk.
Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, don't worry. It was the half an hour talk you did to a JavaScript community, I think, in San Francisco, or something similar.
Oh,
so I was thinking something similar, but concentrating myself on the major aspects of Derby, how to use it, how you have to change your mind in order to use it, and those kind of things.
Cool. Yeah, let us know as you're, thinking of the topic, however we can help too.
So let's hope also the organizer would like to talk to this. But we'll see. Yeah, I'll let you know if it will be accepted.
Cool. Right now, taking note. All right. Well, why don't we move on to the questions then?
Oh wait.
Yeah,
I was.
You want to edit this note to be more accurate? There you go. Sweet. Yeah, so let's move on to some questions. The first one I wrote down here was because I tried to use, or I made this thing where it's essentially CodePen in CodePen. Like I wanted to be able to make like a code mirror editor. We had HTML, JavaScript, and CSS, and then that would associate to a component, so you could prototype the component with live coding, right? Like you just type, and then like the component would re-render every time you type. So I put everything into an iframe, or like a construction iframe on the fly. But Derby does some stuff to the because of the routing, it does things to the window history, which you can't do in like a sandbox iframe with certain conditions. So I was actually trying to ask Nate, or I'm waiting to ask Nate about, because he's mentioned something about removing the routing stuff from the default Derby. But anyway, since he's not here, we'll probably just move on from that question. Yeah. Another thing I noted, somebody made a pull request for ad hoc projections. That was you, Jose, right?
Yeah, I was.
So I wanted Nate to take a look at that. Again, he's not here. I think some of the reasons we didn't do this is because, like for our app, we use a lot of projections that we set up, pre-set up, and it's because the complications of if you like do a set or an ad on like a projected collection, like it, has to know how to do that. So because like Share might think that property doesn't exist, but it does. So I'm not sure quite the implications of accepting this pull request right now.
Okay. In our use case, we were only getting the data. We were not setting the data, and so we are using now my fork in our project, and for now it's working okay.
Yeah.
I'll let you know if we might find some problems if we need to also modify the data in the projection. But yeah, for now it was like more just an overload of work, let's call it overload of code to define also a quick projection in another place, and just to use it in one place, and that's it. So that's why.
It's cool. I think it's a good use case, and we also do some things sometimes where we actually connect to a read-only MongoDB. So it's totally doable to just only read, and subscribe to stuff like that. So
the other thing of that pull request is that I also merged in my pull request the pull request of Zag. so that we already use the Mongo native driver.
Nice. Yeah, we're trying to get to that. So I'm not sure how soon we'll merge his thing in, but I know we want to replace all this stuff with the native. Yeah.
Okay.
Cool. Yeah, but hopefully, by next week we'll have a look at some of those. All right. So another thing that I've noted, and this is someone also on the mailing list, I think is experiencing the same thing, but we've seen mostly in our task queue thing, our like asynchronous job, which is a server that subscribes to certain collections, and every time new things pop up, we handle it in a job. Is sometimes just not calling the callbacks on document, like if you do like a model.set and then you have a callback on it, like the server will never acknowledge that set even though it happens, right? Like it doesn't publish back to the client the fact that it did what it was supposed to do. So this is probably a bug somewhere in Share or LiveDB that we've been aware of for a little while now, and it happens so infrequently that it's a little hard to reproduce, and in our case, we can solve it just by restarting the service, which is kind of shitty, but it works for now. So we're still trying to get to the bottom of it, but I just want to make people aware of that. I think the person on the mailing list has a similar case, and they have like a boiled down version, so I'm going to try to reproduce it using theirs, and maybe we'll be able to get to the bottom of it that way. All right, so let's move on. So are these your questions here?
Yeah, I did some work today. So basically, the first and the second question were some tryouts that I did, and then the third question is actually how I resolved my problem. So basically, my use case was I had this component for the sidebar. So we have the top bar where we have our brand and the user drop down, user menu drop down, and then we have the sidebar with the let's call with all the pages. So they go to the routes. But in a specific case, we had, let's call it a sub-route. So basically, from the systems page, we can go to a system detail. And so I need, in order to highlight in the sidebar the correct nav link, so under systems, so when I was in the system detail, I wanted to highlight the systems nav link. I was trying to do something that seems to me very complicated now, but basically in the index of the of my app, I was calling the sidebar component. Okay, and then in the index, well, in the template of my component, I was defining also a nav link partial. So I had the index partial and the nav link partial in my templates of the component. So I was calling the component, and then inside the component, I was calling the partial. Okay. The strange thing is that when I was calling the partial nav link from the app index, the index of the app, I was not able to call also the check selected method, which was defined in the component controller. It was like the partial had a different controller than the component. I didn't dive too deep in the component implementation, but basically what I was expecting was that if I call a controller method inside the partial of a component, I call it with the controller of the component, but it doesn't seem so, because when calling the navlink partial in my index of the app, then the browser or the server side, if I was refreshing the page, they gave me the error that I posted, which is
function not found. Yeah.
yeah, basically that one. So a bit frustrated. I tried another thing, and which was okay. Let's not call that function inside the app index. So let's do everything in the component. And then actually, I was trying to use arrays so that I could, inside my index of the app, I could do view is sidebar, and then inside the sidebar I could do like something. I will copy and paste the code here. Let's see if I can. I would do something like this. So I was doing like navlink. I wrote the example in the second question. So basically, I was doing like view is sidebar, and then in the sidebar, I was using the navlink, a navlink element which was defined through the arrays attribute of my component. I did basically the same example with CodePen, which is here. I took your example, Jan. I took your example of the DerbyJS, and I modified it so that basically I could add navlinks through each loop, because I don't know the navlinks before. I don't know how many they are. They are computed dynamically. So basically, I wanted to write the navlinks through each loop, but it seems that using the attributes inside each, they don't get rendered. I don't know if this is a wanted.
Yeah, I see that.
So basically, if you put the panes, okay, inside the first tabs, well, when you go to the CodePen, obviously, if you throw away the each loop and you put the pane manually, you get the pane also in the first tabs component. But then if you use each and then you use a pane inside the each loop, you don't get the component rendered. And I don't know if this is wanted, but I didn't thought so.
Yeah, it probably should. That should work. Open up an issue.
I've actually stumbled upon the same issue, and I had the same solution to it. I think. I can't remember. I didn't have time to post anything. Unfortunately, so I'm sorry you had to go through the same process.
No problem. Well, at least I ended up with the same solution, so it seems that for now this is the way. And so the solution was to pass to the component all the data and then let the component loop through the data and do its logic, calling the check selected function as before, but then it's called in the component context, I guess. And so it's find and everything looks good.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's definitely a bug probably in the way that array stuff should work. But I do think that in general, that probably better to let the component I mean, at that level, like, I think that feature is a little bit on the edge in terms of like how convenient it actually is versus, you know, what's a better pattern, right? Like, in general, it seems like if a component taking in data and then representing it is like a good way to do things, right? Like,
yeah.
And you might want to specify the way the component renders certain things, which you can do with like the within stuff or the you know, like the custom views that you pass in.
Mm-hmm.
But this data arrays thing, the arrays property, like, to me, it sounds like a little more trouble than it's worth, because a lot of times you want to automatically do that stuff, and then you're driving it by the data, you might as well just pass the data in. Yeah, I don't know, but would you mind filing an issue on Derby?
Okay, I would open an issue on Derby or somewhere else on some other components of Derby.
Let's just do it on Derby.
Okay.
I think may have mentioned this, and I think I agree. It's like it's easier to keep track, even though like there's the sub projects. A little easier to keep track of things, and that way you don't have to figure out which exact module is the problem, right? Like
of course.
Yeah, and just link to the code pen, and we'll.
Okay.
Yeah, I have a long backlog of things to go through.
Oh yeah, there was another thing. Maybe I should say this in the announcements.
Yeah.
I posted something on the forum, on the mailing list. I was checking last week this project called Node.js Security Project, which basically,
right.
Yeah, it's an effort to analyze the node modules on NPM, or at least some of them, and try to find some bugs or some vulnerabilities in the modules. And so they posted this application, which is called NSP, which basically checks if in the project there are some dependencies which are vulnerable, as stated in the Node security project. And basically in Derby and in ShareJS there are two vulnerable modules, which are QS and Samover. I don't know why they are or for what they are used, but basically in order to resolve the vulnerability issues, they should be updated to the newer versions. So the QS package is used in tracks that you already told us that you want to change it or don't use it. So I don't know if it makes sense to update this dependency. And the other dependency is in ShareJS.
Cool. Yeah, we'll look into updating those.
Yes, and these vulnerabilities should not be very high priority, but they just allow someone to do some DDoS or DOS attacks, so denial of service attack on the app. So basically overloading the application or with some things like for regex or other things, the application won't reply to the users because they are too busy to reply to only one user, and then all the other users would be stuck.
Got it. Yeah. Well, thanks for doing that. And
You're welcome.
All right. Well, I think that's the list of questions. Any more things we want to talk about before we hang out?
I'm happy.
Yeah, I'm too.
Cool. Well, I guess I'll see you guys next week then, and hopefully Nate will be here. And yeah, we have a big backlog of issues to go through together to see how we can best clean them up.
Yeah, unfortunately, in this period, at this time, maybe I'd be able to be here like 1 week yes and 1 week no, because I have other appointments or other stuff to do on this particular time. But I try to be there anyway.
Yeah, no problem. Whenever you can make it. Yeah. Cool.
Okay.
All right. Well, see you guys later then.
Yeah. Thanks, Jan. Have a nice day.
You too.
You guys.
Bye. Bye, Carl.